Wow. You guys ready for a little honesty moment? About the time they tell you, backstage, it's almost like a bit of a magic show when you come out. They say, hey, wait for like 3 seconds so that there can be a little more shock and awe. And you're talking to okay, so Pattern at its core is fundamentally data science AI company. So this is not what we do naturally. And the thing that made me feel the best backstage, my best feeling, was when I shook hands with our head of data science, and his hand was just as freezing as mine. We're so glad to be here. We're so grateful you came. I think the conference this year, we have more brand attendees than we have ever had, and the audience is now 70% brand, which is amazing. Thank you all for coming. I want to talk through Accelerate a little bit. As a concept, when we first started Pattern, the idea was largely, hey, we took, my background was 100% tech data science, that world. I'd never had anything to do with brands or branding. And it was a fun marriage. A lot of things, we learned so much about each other, I think, and over the years we've learned a lot. And we've done some amazing things. And we tried to define how would we define what we do for a brand? And I'm going to go a little bit of physics on you because it's sort of the background of the word accelerate. And we did coin the term e-commerce accelerators now, which is widely used. And here's a little bit of math. Forgive me a little bit as we go through this. Okay, you can see the vector notation on acceleration. But the concept, you'll have a scalar quantity and a vector quantity. A scalar quantity might be something like speed. And speed alone is not acceleration. So acceleration is velocity, change in velocity over change in time. So if you're going 65 miles an hour, you can't consider that acceleration until you add direction. So it takes magnitude and direction. So let's just look at a little sine curve we put together. This is what we do when we're trying to define what it is we do as a business. But this sine curve, so the point for brands, what we all want to do in life, and I guess for brands, is we want to get from some point A to another point B. And this is what we all end up doing to some degree. We go a little bit all over the place. So if you go all over the place and you do it very quickly, you could also get to point B. But without direction, without the vector quantity for acceleration, you'll never get to point B. And we actually ran, we threw this into Python, and you can actually do it with pixels, so the crest here is 600 pixels, and the period was 640 pixels, and we just threw it in a quick Python modeling, and this line is just over 2 times the amount of work that it would take if we could just travel at a straight line. So you start seeing, if you're a company, that work piece is people and dollars. And if you're slightly off, which we all are, that's where the real work happens. So as we think about acceleration, how is the best way for a company or people, or the best couple ways, to eliminate this oscillation as much as possible? And we talked about it a lot, so it's the theme of the conference. We think it comes down to these 2 things. Of course, there are many other factors, but these are clearly in the running. some cool animation. So number one is connect. The impact of connect is sort of astounding when you start to think about it. We'll walk through a couple examples. Innovate and then accelerate. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, this is an extreme example that I really like. So Harvard did this review of LinkedIn connections. They looked at 9 million people with 2 billion connections and found, now, I think everyone can get, hey, if you have more connections, you're going to be able to do more in sales, business development, all those types of things. But if you have more connections to your industry as a company, so this is connections to your industry, you will create more patents. So on the far end of that example, and there's everything in between. Of course, you know, lead generation, collaboration, ideas, all of those things. This, I felt like, was the farthest end of a good example that would help us really say, do connections matter in a way that we could prove in some confidence interval? All of these companies here were started with some connection. You guys are familiar. I think I pushed the button too many times. You guys are familiar with, of course, Uber. The Uber example is compelling. You know, they were, of course, in 2008, they were at a conference, so like you guys here today, and they couldn't get a cab, and we have Uber. We have Airbnb, who was they were at a design conference in San Francisco, and they were actually renting out their air mattresses. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't think they did either. So in their apartment, and so they called it Air Bed and Breakfast, and now we have Airbnb. So just some fun, and if you go through companies and you try to say, okay, how many of these companies were built on some social connection, or conference connection, or neighborhood connection, or dinner? It's astounding. And that's just the start of the company. That's just the start of the companies themselves. But there are so many things in between those. This is where we are today with this conference. There are, we believe, 21 different points or opportunities for us to interact today. So we did a little math. There's 1,500 attendees. So there's 58,000 opportunities to connect. When the team first did this, they said, hey, we think that maybe people could make 5 connections per interaction. And I was like, I don't think people want to talk to 5 people. Let's move it down to 3. I'm not sure where you all fit on that spectrum, but regardless, there are a lot of opportunities here. And of those 58,000 opportunities, something magical is going to happen. You know, I don't know if it will change the world like it did with, say, Apple or Uber, but it will, I am convinced that it can change the trajectory of your companies if we're all open to it. So here's a small ask. This is my cute little guy over here. He's cute, right? He's not that cute anymore. But he's now 25. He's here, so I hope he doesn't take offense to that, but he would acknowledge it's true too. This is really important while you're here. Don't underestimate your ability to bring value to someone else. I'll give you this example with Mason. Mason went to this space center over here, Chris McAuliffe Space Center. It's a local one. It's a neat program where they take the kids, you know, he was in 5th grade at the time. They take the kids and they do these space missions. And when he was in 5th grade, he went and the teachers chose for him like which role he got. And he got the captain of the mission, so he was the captain of the mission. He came home and He could not stop talking about it. We're 2 days in, he's still giving me every detail of what happens during the 4 hours, right? Thrilled, really fun. Next year in sixth grade, they went again. And he was just thrilled. And he gets there, and this time he gets to pick the role he wants. He picks the engineer. He comes back, and he is just thrilled. Same sort of thing, talking about everything, endlessly. And I finally just asked him, I'm like, hey, so Mason, which of those 2 jobs did you like the most? Because it seems like you just love both of them. And he sits there for a second, and he thinks about it, and he's like, I think I liked the engineer job quite a bit more. And then he was like, but only if the captain stays out of the way. And at the time, I was managing a lot of engineers. And so the impact that had on me was sort of massive. Because I got thinking, if there's a way, because people are uniquely great in their spaces, and they love them. But for some reason inside companies, we start saying, hey, here's a promotion path that we want you to chase. So great people automatically just start chasing that promotion path, when what they really want to do, if they're truly honest with their 11-year-old selves, is they want to build stuff. So I think, that moment for me has changed how Pattern runs in its entirety. And if you go out and look at, any feedback on Pattern, our employee surveys, our Glassdoor, you'll start seeing a common thread of sort of this autonomous. But all of this is on purpose because we want to get out of the way of great engineers so they can do their magic. So that was just one interaction that if you think of acceleration, that curve where I'm trying to get Pattern or some effort from A to B, I promise you that shortened the amplitude of that curve and made it so my total work was less in getting to B because of an interaction. Now, here's the funny thing. Mason, in that case, he definitely underestimated his ability to bring value to me because he didn't really give a shit, right? He was just telling me about what he was having fun doing. So it's really fun to see what can happen in an interaction. And as you're here today, be open to the possibility that someone might change your life in a way that you might not expect, and that you might change someone else's. And they can be small. They don't need to be big things like this. Okay, the second piece is innovate. When you really think of the amount of work, think of all the inventions through history where we've been able to reduce the total work. It's almost always been through some innovation. And they're oftentimes what might be small appearing and what might be big. And when you start thinking about companies, get my hand sticky again. Companies have this idea a lot of times that they think they can innovate, or they're a very innovative company. And I've read a lot of books on this, and I think to try to get innovation to happen is an interesting thing at a company, because this concept is where I've landed. Peter Drucker. No organization ever created an innovation. People innovate, not companies. So when we all go to Accelerate, and you're not with your companies, you're still innovating, and you're bringing that back. It is, I think, a big misbelief to think that I think you could characterize, say, Apple maybe as an innovative company, or maybe Tesla's an innovative company. But at the end of the day, it's the people inside those companies that are innovating. And as soon as companies start thinking it's them, I think people start quitting on them, on the innovation drive. And it's why when we all meet together, because you can't go in your company and get together with a group of people who do largely the same job like you can here. So in a way, if you go back to that LinkedIn piece, it's when you connect with people in your industry that the patents happen. So coming together at a couple days like this allows us a moment for innovation that it's impossible to replicate inside a company. I want to give you a fun example. This is Tae-Young, just started at Pattern. Please no one steal him. But he has a fun background. He grew up in South Korea. When he was 9 years old, he delivered newspapers and milk from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. When he was 18 years old in 2014, his family had the independence policy. So the year you turn 18, you're out. So on January 1st, 2014, boop, Tae-Young was on his own. Does anyone else have this independence policy? Anyone else feel like implementing it? It worked for Tae-Young. Listen to this. So, of course, he didn't go straight to university because he didn't have the money. So he went and sold phone accessories, made about $5,500, and then went to university, 2014. 2024, Tae-Young graduated from Brigham Young University with no debt. So 10 years later, and I'm sitting in a meeting with Tae-Young, and to be quite honest, I didn't know his name, and he was an intern. And he starts walking me through some AI models that he was doing around IT help. He was just on on our ops team, and he had automated ticket reduction down 75% and the average resolution time by 87%. And then I sort of said, who is this guy? And then I realized that he had done that on the right. He entered almost every. So it is fun. I am thrilled to see what Tae-Young will do for Pattern over the years. And it is my job to stay out of his way. And it is our overall leadership job, I think, to stay out of his way so that he can innovate. And if there are conferences around machine learning or places where he can get together with his industry, that ought to be something that we put at a pretty high premium, I think. The data backs this up. All right, so if you think innovation, we're lucky because we get to start from a place that is very fun. I am really glad, we have two threads here. One is transportation, in the green there, and then communication is the orange. And you can see how the different innovations stand on the previous one. So, and they take thousands of years. And today, we have so many giants to stand on. Okay, we're in the e-com space, all of us, and we're able to stand on many giants who have built infrastructure for us, who have built products for us that are world-class at this point. And we can innovate on top of all of those innovations. There are, of course, a lot of great tech platforms out there. There are so many things that we can use. And in a way, it's sort of our collective job to put the next green or the next orange bubble out there. And I think we will. And who knows, maybe it comes from Accelerate. Maybe it comes from talking with your kids. There's just so many times, but I think this connection piece, business is a team sport. Nothing of high impact, I believe, ever has truly gotten done, nor will get done, outside of the team concept. So, for all those, chief data fanatics out there, and I'm sure there are a lot of them, who would rather be sitting at your computer playing Civilization or something, taking some time to get out and connect. And when you're sitting at the lunches and those connections, I am convinced can become legitimately impact and hopefully, we might be able to do something to change the world. So you'll see this concept around all over. We refer to this as an amorphous object, this, sort of beginning. You don't have to refer to it as that, though. I've heard it called like the blob or whatever, too. But you'll see those around. And then the concept, why you're here, is you all came in with ideas or thoughts that were maybe not quite formed. As you're going from A to B, maybe not, maybe you're oscillating a little more than you want. But hopefully while you're here, you'll notice the theme of the conference a little bit, going from amorphous object into a more concrete idea or a path for you. This is a fun story that everyone knows probably. But Bill Fernandez was the connector between Steve Jobs and Wozniak. So he knew Wozniak because they were in the same neighborhood growing up, and they were nerdy and techie, and they loved to talk about these types of things. And I know Jobs sometimes gets the rap of just the designer, but he quite enjoyed, diving into a deep technical conversation. And they happened to be at a car wash, Steve Jobs and Bill Fernandez, at a car wash, and he saw Steve Wozniak, and he said, "Hey, I need to introduce you to this guy." That was it. That was the moment, and they started talking. But notice, none of them did it by themselves. You don't do great things with high impact by yourselves. It turns into a team sport. And look at this. This is crazy. This is just Apple. So if we figure an 8.1 billion global population, this is embarrassing to most of us, but we might fall into this. 195 average minutes daily phone usage. How many of you admit? Actually, I don't even know how this can possibly be true, 3 hours. It probably is. How many of you think you're above this number? All right. Must be all your teenagers then. But the impact they're having on people's lives, with only 22% market share in total, and by the way, this is just the phones. This isn't Apple devices in totality, but 43 minutes per person globally they're spending on an Apple device, thanks to that car wash moment. And then they connected, and they started innovating, and they changed the world in a very positive way. All right. This is our little story. People know Mel to some degree. Mel, do you want to just stand up? She's here. She hates this, so sorry, but. Mel ran Pattern actually for the first couple years until I joined full-time in 2015. Of course, I was just building tech all night, but we had a chance encounter from someone we both knew, where we ended up at a lunch together at Zupa's, I don't know, 10-something years ago. And we had a lot of common interests, some really fun common interests. Right now, one of our favorites is we've dropped 4,000 hours on a game called Civilization VI together. It's quite competitive. She has a slight edge on me right now, which is really aggravating. But and then later on, when we started Pattern, we did our full handshaking at a little Mexican restaurant that's in Utah here called Cafe Rio. And this was the beginning for us. And it's turned into some pretty fun stuff as well. Right now, Pattern, I believe, is the preeminent e-com accelerator, I guess without question in that space. And our set of data is almost unrivaled. We're gathering about 60 billion data points a day. And then we've got our 30 patents here. And we believe we've done together as a company, and by the way, my name is not on any of those patents. The people who have come to Pattern, I have certainly contributed, but the people who have come to Pattern have been phenomenal. And my job has been, can I get out of their way enough and just be excited? This is something we're going to talk about tomorrow. I'm just thrilled about. If you remember last year, I called out some brands and I said, hey, brand so-and-so, and behind the scenes we had our AI and data science teams, and we were building content on the fly. And we could take a brand, and in 7 minutes, we could create what was called a fact sheet. On average, this fact sheet was 350 pages. And was just a mass data dump of everything we knew about the brand and everything we could collect via AI about the brand. Then we generated the content, which I thought would be very cool. And it was. But it wasn't good enough. You know what everyone asked me for? Can I have the fact sheet? So the core set of data, I'm like, do you really want the 350 pages? I mean, I don't know how you consume this. It's a nightmare. And without AI, there's no way to consume it. So we have spent the last year essentially turning that fact sheet, which is all the data about a brand that might inform how you would build content, into this concept of a content brief, which we're patent pending on. And you can see just some basic ideas if you go over here. This is one product. Say you're a designer, you don't always need AI to create your content. You can, if you could serve up data to a creative person that would inform how people are finding the product, like this. 63% of order comes from the search term home and room scent solutions. And we developed a concept of a search family so we could group these search terms. You can see here's the search terms in that family if you have questions about it. And then we go through all of the search families. We'll go into this in great detail tomorrow in my breakout. And we'll go through all of the insights. And you can see some of these other ones. You can go and hit Amazon reviews and all the other reviews, and you can compare your feedback to the category. So like this one down here, this is the negative sentiment group over here, the negative review themes. People say 7 times more often than the category average, 7% to 1%, that this item is smaller than expected. So if you're the creative person, you could fix that. Say you could reduce those reviews. What will happen to the sales of the product? So if you're a content person trying to figure out how I do this better, the thing you're missing really is the data. Just telling ChatGPT to build you an image it's not useful. And we found that what Pattern was best at was using AI to create the data lakes. And so we're basically tomorrow, we're making those transparent. And we're even, we have a concept of image archetypes you see on the left here. An image archetype, we classified all the image archetypes. We came up with a number of 64. Cool number, huh, for nerd people. But we came up with a number, and like a product close-up would be an archetype. You know, an ingredients image where it might include the ingredients would be an archetype. So we're running through and taking conversion, your conversion rate, all of your competitors' conversion rates, and telling you which archetypes you have, which archetypes you don't have, and what might convert. So in this case, you can see the green is what this product has, and the purple is what they don't have. So a product action or a benefits image in terms of conversion, that's the conversion rate on that axis, would be, if you're a creative person, you should think about this. Now, the great thing is you can feed all of this data into AI and it can create your images for you. What oftentimes happens though is the creative team or somebody is like, I don't like it, so I want to build my own. And I can't say I disagree with them in many cases. So we've got quite a few things where you can generate the images using AI, you can select which ones you want to train the model further, and then you can regenerate them, or you can just take this, download it as a PDF, hand it to your creative person, and tell them to go crazy. But I promise you the output of this, which is patent pending, will massively change the conversion rate. And if you think of the ecom formula, which is, you know, revenue equals traffic times conversion times price times product availability, repeat for lifetime customer value. If you think of that equation, you would think that if you just increase conversion, say from 20% to 30%, it would be a linear. It's not. Because if you win on all marketplaces, marketplaces get paid when you buy stuff. So if you convert slightly higher than your competitive set, you get an outsized amount of traffic, so it's exponential. So this concept, I sort of hated content when I started Pattern. And we were sort of bad at it in the beginning until the math started showing us how much it mattered. And now with this, we might be getting to the point where we're one of the best in the world. And you can learn more about this tomorrow, and we'll go into in depth on this. But this is some just very exciting outputs of, you know, two people who somehow have a chance meeting at Zupa's and like to play Civ together and get together and build something, you know, of course, with 1,500 other people and 20 global offices that help brands succeed on this globally. We start coming up with some things that for me are just so meaningful and so fun. Okay, so we have at the conference tons of brands. We are thrilled. Of course, this is just a small list. I am convinced that you can learn a lot from the other brands that are here. And I'm also convinced that we will all be better off if we just sort of open up and share what's working. I have been surprised at how often we're very open at Pattern. We tell almost everybody everything. And it has not hindered our ability to compete in the marketplace. I think it has only enhanced it because people have other ideas. So it's hard sometimes when you're with a group and you might see them as competitors. However, I am convinced that by just opening that up, you'll eliminate a lot of work on that oscillating curve. We have some great headline speakers. It's really fun. I thought I'd just ask one little piece of trivia. And I just thought of this. But whoever gets this right can go to the swag store and pick out anything they want. All right? How many rounds of Jeopardy did Ken Jennings win in a row? 74. All right, anybody who said out loud or thought 74, go to the swag store. This is an On Your Honor event. All right, 74, that's the number, $4.5 million. Ken is here. It's a delight to have him. Jesse is a blast. I love Jesse so much. You'll see Jesse get up, and he's just, he gets up with his hat. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but his hat's like sort of slightly bent off to the side. He has this chain and everything. And he has built companies that are amazing and has an authenticity about him. And he will just tell you what he has learned in such an inspiring way. I think you'll find his talk great. Jessica Simpson's, congratulations to Jessica Simpson, who finally got full control of the Jessica Simpson's collection. She sold it in 2015 and regained full control in 2021. And she built a $1 billion brand. You'll notice the celebrities that we have here are those that have also built brands so that we can learn from what they've done. All right, I'm gonna just close by thanking you all for being here. And I think we will have a moment to spend a couple days together, learn a ton from each other, and just share ideas. And so we've got a video to close this, and I'm gonna step off stage, but we've got a video to close this that walks through the process of what we think is a good way to talk about connect, innovate, accelerate.